can a country continue to produce so much gold and wealth, yet many of its citizens continue to struggle every day? Hello everyone, welcome back to Talks by K, the channel that reports important stories from across Africa. Now, today we are looking back at a major decision that happened months ago. And actually, this decision has actually raised important questions about African resources, foreign companies, taxes, and true independence. Now, months ago, the government of Burkina Faso took steps to end an old tax agreement that had existed for many decades. The agreement had been signed between Burkina Faso and France during the 1960s. For years, the agreement had been described as a form of cooperation between the two countries. It was meant to prevent companies and individuals from paying the same tax twice. However, the government of Burkina Faso later argued that the agreement was no longer helping the country fairly. Officials believe that it gave some foreign companies special benefits while Burkina Faso received less money from businesses operating inside borders. This became a serious issue because Burkina Faso was rich in natural resources, especially gold. Gold was being removed from the country every year. Companies were making money, business continued, and profits were being made. Yet, many ordinary citizens were still struggling with poverty, high food prices, insecurity, poor roads, and limited public services. At the same time, the government needed more money to support soldiers, provide equipment, improve security, and help communities affected by violence. The situation pushed the country's leaders to examine the gold agreement more closely. Now, this actually got Ibrahim Traoré worried, and his government asked a question. They asked why businesses could operate in Burkina Faso, use the country's resources, earn large profit, and still send much out of that money outside the country. They also asked why the people of Burkina Faso were expected to depend on foreign aid and loans, while wealth from their own land was leaving the country. After reviewing the situation, the government decided that the old tax agreement had to end. The leadership explained that the decision was not made because of hatred towards France or foreign businesses. No. According to the government's position, the decision was made because Burkina Faso wanted fair treatment. The country wanted companies operating inside Burkina Faso to follow Burkinabe tax laws and contribute properly to the national economy. Now, under the new directions, companies would no longer receive special treatment simply because of an agreement signed many years earlier. The government wanted more money from mining, fuel, and other major businesses to support Burkina Faso directly. Now, that money could then be used to improve national security, support soldiers, build public services, and also reduce the country's dependence on foreign loans. And that was actually a good decision made by Ibrahim Traoré. Now, many Burkinabes were happy when they actually heard this. Now, the move caused strong reactions. Some people praised Captain Ibrahim Traoré and his government. They said Burkina Faso was finally standing up for itself and protecting its wealth. They believed that independence was not only about having a flag, a government, and a national anthem. No, they believed that was not all about a country becoming independent. To them, real independence also meant having control over taxes, resources, business agreements, and national income. Now, other people were worried. Some critics warned that ending the agreement could make foreign investors afraid. They believe some companies might leave Burkina Faso if they were asked to pay more taxes. They also warned that conflict with powerful foreign partners could create new economic problems for the country. Now, let us ask an important question. Was Burkina Faso trying to reject foreign investment and separate itself from the rest of the world? The answer was no. According to the government's message, Burkina Faso was not rejecting cooperation or foreign businesses. The country was asking for partnership based on fairness and respect, and they were actually right to do so. That was what the country was simply asking for. They were asking for partnership that is based on fairness and respect. Now, the leadership said businesses that wanted to operate in Burkina Faso were still welcome. However, those businesses had to respect national law, taxes and make sure the people also benefited from the country's resources. The government's position was simple: a true partner should not be afraid of fair taxation. Of course, Burkina Faso's leaders also looked beyond mining. Fuel and energy became another major area of concern because fuel affected almost every part of daily life. It affected transportation, food prices, farming, business, and military operations. When fuel prices increased, the cost of many other things also increased. Actually, this placed more pressure on ordinary citizens. The government believed that too much money from fuel distribution was leaving the country instead of supporting the national economy. Now, because of this, the leadership moved to increase the country's control over fuel storage and distribution. The goal was not to stop fuel from reaching citizens or to close businesses. No, that was not the goal. The goal was to make sure that profits from an important national resource supported Burkina Faso's needs. Yes, that was the goal. According to supporters of the decision, fuel continued to move, workers continued doing their jobs, and businesses remained active. What changed was the direction of some of the money. Instead of automatically leaving Burkina Faso, more of the revenue could remain inside the country and support national plans. These changes were seen by supporters as part of a bigger struggle for African economic independence. Now, for many years, African countries had been politically independent but continued to depend heavily on systems created during or shortly after colonial rule. Some old agreements still shaped how resources were sold, how taxes were collected, and how foreign companies operated. Burkina Faso's action encouraged people in other African countries to ask similar questions. Why should all agreements continue when they no longer help the people? Why should countries rich in minerals remain poor? Why should foreign companies make large profits while local communities lack basic services? And why should African governments always ask for aid while money from African resources continues to leave the continent? The decision also showed that changing an old system was not easy. When a country accepted the existing system, people often describe it as a stable and friendly. But when the same country questioned unfair agreement, critics sometimes describe it as dangerous or difficult. Now, Burkina Faso's government accepted that the changes could bring pressure. However, the leadership believed the country could not build a strong future without controlling more of its own wealth. The country also strengthened its relationship with Mali and Niger through the alliance of Sahel states. This cooperation focused on security, economic support, and shared independence. The three countries believed that working together would make it harder for outside pressure to isolate any one of them. Burkina Faso's message was that independence did not mean closing the country's door. It meant having the freedom to choose partners and negotiate agreements that respected the country's interests. It meant refusing to accept unfair conditions simply because they had existed for many years. Months after the tax decision, the story remained important because it was about more than one agreement with France. It was about whether African countries could control their resources, collect fair taxes, and use their wealth to improve the lives of their people. The decision also placed responsibility on Burkina Faso's leaders. Ending an old agreement was only the first step. The government also needed to show that the money collected would be managed honestly. Citizens needed to see improvement in security, education, healthcare, jobs, and public services. True economic independence would not mean much if national wealth was later lost through corruption or poor management. So here is the final question. Do you believe African countries should cancel all agreements that no longer benefit their people, even if doing so creates tension with powerful foreign nations? Please share your opinion in the comment section. This is Talks by Kate, the channel that reports across Africa. If you love watching this video, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, and share it with your friends and family. Thank you and have a nice day.